All right, today I'm going to be showing you how to produce the future rave song Kill the Vibe by David Guetta and Morten. So here's what that sounds like. This was a real fun song to remake, so let's dive into it and I'll show you how I made it section by section. All right, so here's the project here. And so what I'll do is I'll go through section by section. The intro, the important thing to know is that it introduces a lot of elements, but everything is running through a low-cut filter, which I have automated here. And so you can see that there is this EQ that has a low cut at 120, and so that makes it sound a little bit thin, which sounds like this. And then I have it automating into the verse so that it gets rid of that low cut filter and it makes it sound so boomy when it actually hits. So here we go. I know what it's worth, covered up in. And yes, those are my vocals. I didn't want to put the original vocals because I didn't want to get a copyright strike. All right, so I'm actually going to show you the main instrument parts in the verse because I want you to hear what they actually sound like and not with the low cut filter. But I will show you the synth sound though, since that takes place in the intro. And so that sounds like this. And I just used Serum for that, but I added a lot of effects to it to make it try to sound like the original. So I started with the patch LD Birth of Electro, which sounds like the following without any effects. Way different. So this was just like trial and error. So a lot of what I do is just fiddling around with things and see what works. So I decided, oh, let me adjust the EQ to take out the highs and boost the mids a little bit. That made it sound like this. And I'm like, okay, we're starting to get into some good territory. Then I was like, I want it to sound a little deeper. So I added a little altar boy to it and lowered, all I did was lower the formant a bit. And now it sounds like this. And then I added some Valhalla Vintage Verb. And then finally some ping pong delay. And that got me mostly there. So I was happy with that. So that's the synth sound. And so let's go into, I'm calling it the verse, which is this part. This part. I know what it's worth, covered up in diamond. And so let me mute the vocals so that we can focus just on the instrument. So for the kick, I used two kicks here, an Oliver kick and a Travis Barker kick, because I wanted like a lower, punchier kick, and then I wanted like a kind of more high, a kick to fill in the high end. And so this kind of worked really nicely together. And then the thing that like, to me is the special sauce on what makes this future rave track sound so fucking huge is this sub bass here. So I layered the sub bass behind the kick so it sounds like this. Here's what the sub bass sounds like alone. And it's really simple. It's just sublab, and I use this preset called Low Harmonics, and it's just the stock sound. But you can notice that it has that ducking sound, and that's because I use Kickstarter to duck it away so that the kick still has room to shine when it comes through. So that's what I did there. Then we have the clap here, which sounds like this. I got two claps. I got this Oliver clap operator and this OTD clap. Again, I have a lower clap and a higher clap, and they pair really nicely together. So with the other elements, it sounds like this. Then we add a very interesting percussive element, which when I was listening to the original track, I don't know what sound they used or what sound they sampled, but to me, the closest thing is that it sounded like a heartbeat. And so it sounds like this. And so basically I just sampled a bunch of heartbeat sounds that I found on Splice. And the rhythm of it is really odd because it's almost like, well, it's on the 16th note offbeat. So it sounds just like very rushed and very percussive. And so with the other elements, it sounds like this. Very odd rhythm, but it just, I don't know, to me it just adds a lot of energy to it. And then we had, oh, and as far as that goes, I did add some processing to that without any effects. The heartbeat sounds like this. So I added some EQ to take out some of the lows because I don't want them competing with the sub. I added a pretty heavy compressor on it so that the volume is pretty well the same throughout, and also add some high end as well. So that just that alone sounds like this. And then I added some chorus to give it some width. Boom, just like that. And so then we have the hats here. And this is actually two closed hi-hats. So I have this wider hat here, and then a, I don't know which one that is, but it's like a semi-closed hi-hat. And so that's just a typical off, what am I trying to say? Off rhythm sound. Off beat. And so again, with everything there, it sounds like this. And honestly, like, those are the main components of this. This is very interesting because there's not a lot of sounds with this song, but there's just a lot of things working just really nicely together. And then the final thing is we have this clock tick, which is just a sample that I found on Splice. Sounds very Zed. And then I used an analog delay to ping pong it side to side. And so that is really the main thing with the verse. So everything together sounds like I said, I did add my vocals, but this wasn't really the star of why I was doing this. But if you're curious on how I made my vocals sound like this,
I know what it's worth covering up.
I just added a gate to get rid of the silence. I added humanoid to I put it to a dream to remember. And I raised the formant to make me sound more female. And then I added CLA vocals to make it punch. And that's pretty much it there. So it goes like that through the verse, and then we get to this part here.
Glitters ain't gold, yeah, the glitters ain't gold. 'Cause I got 1, 2 things that I can't get off my mind.
So at the pre-drop is what I'm calling it. Pretty much just the clap and the hats and clock tick get taken out. And there's this transition piece that goes into it. And so I layered just some effect sweeps. So we have this one here. And I put a tremendous amount of reverb on it to make the tail nice and long. And then there's this other sweep here. That one is actually sidechained, which you can see right here using Kickstart again. I use Kickstart for most of my sidechaining. And then this last piece is actually just a piece of a sample that I repeated and then sidechained with Kickstart. And so all that together sounds like this. Very cool sounding. And so, like I said, we get to the pre-drop.
Things that I can't get off my mind, and I like to think.
The clap gets added in halfway through.
Holding up them Prada, and I'm looking so.
And then we have another sweep, which is a little bit different. It has a little more harmonic to it. It doesn't sound quite just like white noise. And then this one is another different riser. And that one is more of just like an actual note that's rising in pitch. But again, it's just a sample.
Pulling up them Prada, and I'm looking super fly. Baby, don't you kill a vibe. Baby, don't you kill a vibe. 'Cause I got 1.
All right, and so the thing that I noticed with a lot of future rave songs, and honestly a lot of house songs in general, is they will cut off one measure before the drop. So everything builds.
Don't you kill a vibe, baby.
And instead of building and then immediately going into the drop, it actually cuts off the last measure of what would be the 16-bar loop. And then
Don't you kill a vibe.
the vocals usually go, and then there's just this easy snare transition. That's just this Oliver snare.
'Cause I got 1, 2 things that.
All right, so then in the drop, we add a lot of elements back in. So we have those hats added back in. And really, like, the rest of the song is just alternating what comes in and what comes out. So here we have no clap.
1, 2 things that I can't get off my mind, and I like to think that I'm right.
And then that repeats for a little bit, and then we have this heartbeat rhythm coming back.
Kill the vibe.
Now this is the one part that has sort of an interesting rhythm. So here are the original vocals, which I'll play a little bit of, and hopefully I don't get copyright striked. So they sound like this. Look, I didn't bother to recreate this. I acknowledge my limitations. I just know that there's probably some vocal chop action, and it sounds like the vocals are doubled and have chorus on them, but I wasn't about to recreate this. But just know it's probably like vocal chops. So I made an attempt at chopping up my vocals, but it's a lot of effort, and I didn't feel like doing that. So anyway, that's typically where that section is. So it's a long drop. And you'll notice like this heartbeat, or this sort of what I'll call breathing sound, is added between a lot of the transition points. And then we get into the riff transition. So again, like a lot of the elements cut off in that last measure here, and then we add back in that synth from the intro. And we just have the kick, the sub, and that sort of heartbeat sound. All right, and then once we get there, again, this is the same, a lot of the stuff we can just reuse through the song. So this is the same sweep that we've used before. This is the only like really different part here. So this will make sense if I add in the vocals. So with this, it's literally just tom. And I think I may have adjusted the pitch of it. Yeah, I adjusted the pitch of it here to 4. Basically, it sounded like this originally. And then I adjusted. So that made it sound more like the original. And then it also has this hi-hat on top of it to give it a little bit of extra flair. But that's it. I mean, look at this. There's nothing here. It's just this tom. All right, and then we get into an interesting part where we have the same sub as before, but it sounds like this. So basically, it's kind of, you can see, I basically just did our normal sublab part here. So this is just our normal sublab. And then all I did was bounce it out, move it up here, and then I like cut basically each 2 measures or 2 bar beats from each measure to make a more substantial pulsating sound. And again, you won't really be able to hear that unless you have good headphones in. But we still have the clap here. That riff is still playing. We got that sweep followed by 2 snare hits. So this is just where we start to build everything back in, and just all these pieces are starting to come back. Now we got the hats coming back in. And then we start going into the build, and then again, we have this measure of dropout here. Now we have what I call the drop fake out. So I was expecting to kind of hear like the drop come back and have it go full force, but instead we get this drop fake out here, which sounds like this.
1, 2 things that I can get off my mind, and I'd like to think.
So that sounds really cool. And so this is just like syncopated the kicks and with the sub bass here. So you can see here we have just like that. And it just pairs really nicely with the vocals and just adds like an interesting little pre-drop, I'll say. And once we get all that, then it goes right back into the drop. All right, so then we go back into the drop here, and we have all the, again, we kind of start building the elements again. Really hope this video doesn't get copyright strike. And then it builds into the final like drop here. Now this is the one part where we start to add an actual open hi-hat, which you can hear right here. Or no, right here. So this is the only piece where the final drop has like this actual open hi-hat to add just a little more variety for the final drop. And the riff is also here, even with the vocals going on, and then it ends with the silence here. Or it ends with that sort of breathing sound. So yeah, there's really not a lot of elements when it comes to the song. It's just, I think it's really skillful in the way that David Guetta and Morten had like, what, maybe 14 sounds perhaps, and they just were able to combine them in such a way to make it sound really full and to also give it a lot of dynamic character. There's a lot of parts going in and out, and that allows it to give it the dynamics that it has with, you know, a relatively few amount of tracks, and it's a really impactful sound. I mean, this is easily one of my favorite like tech house future rave songs that I've listened to recently. So hopefully you found this video to be helpful. I'm not super adept at going through like how to do these production type things. I don't know if I went in too much detail or if I glossed over something that you wanted me to talk about. So just let me know in the comments and I'll improve as I get better at doing these types of videos. But let me know what you think, and hopefully this helps out for when you're making your next future rave or tech house song. I know it's helped me out a lot with my songs that I'm making now. And yeah, if you liked it, definitely subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.